Live again. How's it going? Happy Friday. Gonna be kind of quick today, not very long. I'm really trying to stay consistent. So I'm just gonna talk about a few things. Um, really productive episode on Wednesday, talking with OliveTreeBear. I want to do more of those kind of creator spotlight videos. That one was a lot of fun because, as some people know, I've been working with OliveTreeBear on some music since like 2020. I think I've got that in the scroll here at the bottom. You might have also noticed that I have a scroll at the bottom now, so making little upgrades and improvements every time I pop on here. And I'm gonna try to do more and more of that. I think this week getting Olive Tree in the chat at all was a struggle at first, but I made that happen. And then, like I said, I added this scroll this week, so that's two things. I think I also figured out how to make people moderators, which was cool because we had somebody pop in here who was talking about free sex or something. So yeah, I guess three things this week. And I was talking, I'm just gonna keep that as kind of like my goal here. Because I was talking with a friend from high school who, after I posted the stream, he sent me a message and said that he wanted to get into podcasting, and he mentioned something about as long as you have good content, then the content speaks for itself or something. And I was telling him, like, when you're first starting out, whether it's with streaming or any creative endeavor, really, because it's the same thing with writing books or releasing music. You can't really think about it being like good content, right? You want it to be entertaining, and your goal is to make it more entertaining over time, and it should be a goal to make it as entertaining as it can be. But I think a lot of people just stop because it's not, PewDiePie right off the bat. And PewDiePie is the perfect example because PewDiePie, when he first started out, didn't have nearly the setup or microphone or video effects or even the style of video making that he had down the line when he had, millions and millions of viewers. And people who are watching also kind of enjoy the progression. I know, watching Owen's stream, for example, one of the coolest parts about it was watching him grow through kind of like ideas like the one I'm going to talk about today, which is libertarianism. So yeah, my goal is to kind of just, figure that out. And with streaming, especially, because you're just kind of, it's a format where it's becoming more and more popular, and it's been harder and harder for me to keep up with other people's streams because there's just so many now. And so you want to be distinct, right? You want to stand out, but at the same time, you can't know what that means ultimately for you unless you keep doing it, right? I know Made by Jim Bob used to do it in his car, and his stream wasn't what it is now when he was doing that, right? It wasn't as popular as it is now. He kind of, one of the things that he's evolved into, right? Him as an example has evolved into is to have people just call in, and a lot of the times people he disagrees with, right? So that wasn't even a possibility when he was doing it in his car. But sometimes, if you just keep going, and you eventually find things like that. And so whether it's, having a logo at the top or having a scroll at the bottom, or talking to people, I think I'm just going to keep, just trying to move towards figuring that part of it out, because this isn't my main thing, right? I mean, I like to make music, and Joe Gagan's in the house. What up, Joe? How you doing? I like to make music and make books, and so streaming is something that, is out of my comfort zone, but also becomes in your comfort zone and is a good way to connect with people like Joe and everybody else that joined last week. So thank you. I was so, the amount of people that were in there last week was awesome. It was just so cool chatting with everybody, especially with OliveTreeBear. And I'm going to have, so my goal as far as, what I'm going to try to do more of here, at least. And right now, I've gotten from one stream a week up to three. Like this week is my first one where I've had 3 days in the week where I've streamed. And so obviously on Wednesday we had Olive Tree, and I decided to call that a creator spotlight. So, and the reason why is because when I was designing my website, I worked with Yogi Bear to design my website because he's pretty good front. I guess it's called front end development. I honestly don't even know. Whichever one is where you build like the visuals of the website. And so I worked with Yogi Bear on my website, which was the coolest thing ever because I got to work with him on that, and then with another bear on designing my logo. A bear named Tim. And what was I saying? Shit. Oh yeah. So Yogi Bear asked me, what is kind of the, like, do you have a quote, or do you have like a theme kind of that describes you as a writer? And so I actually had one from the COVID book I wrote where it was along the lines of, you don't beat the current paradigm by complaining about it. You overcome it by creating something new and making the old one obsolete. And so, that really resonated with me. That's why I started writing books in the first place. I started writing fiction because I was watching TV shows and thinking that they sucked, and and some of them were good. So you have to kind of get inspired by good things too. But when you see the more of the ones you see that just have this fault and that fault, you become a critic and you start to get pissy. I'm sure, Joe, you probably had that in music to some extent with guitar playing. I mean, if you're anything like my dad hates the non-guitar music songs. But yeah, so I was seeing like a lot of it that wasn't resonating with me, inconsistent plots and characters and stuff. So I wanted to start writing books to try to make, prove to myself that I could, wasn't just complaining and was able to create something that I thought was good. And so that kind of has been the overarching theme, I guess, to my creative endeavors in general, whether it's music or books. Pablo Escobar, what's up? How you doing? But yeah, no, so like that's been the overarching theme to my books, and I guess I want to do more of that with this channel. So like the first person I had on was Olive Tree because he is exactly that, like, right? Olive Tree with music he's one of the best musicians there is nowadays, and he creates his own logos driven music. While he was what he was describing on Wednesday, he creates his own logos driven music in a world where there is none, right? In a world where the only popular music, the music that he makes his money on, right, is just the same jingle. He was describing when he was on the channel the feeling of releasing one of his OliveTreeBear songs and seeing the comments, and the depth of the comments and the appreciation in the comments was just way more. And he's a professional musician, so who's been on, I think he said he's been on TV shows in Greece. Like, he's semi-famous in Greece. And so he's been on these shows and he's gotten all the praise in the world. Because, I mean, just listen to his music. He's the kind of person that makes some of the best stuff you're going to hear. And so he's gotten the praise from every angle and found that when he makes the music for the good, for the true, for the beautiful, and to try and make something that he thinks is better than what he's seeing as the current thing, that the response is a lot better. Like, it's a lot more heartfelt and it brings more joy to him. And so I want to highlight creators that do that, right? And maybe I'll have Joe on at some point. Joe, if you want to come on at some point, I'll have to reach out to you for that, because you and my dad have kind of done that in the world of guitars and in the world of pedals and just all amps and all guitar and anything guitar based, really. And I want to highlight those kind of people. I saw another one I talked about on when Olive Tree was on, named The Critical Drinker, who I want to get on. Just anybody who is not just complaining, but also, because it's not complaining. It's fun to like mock the devil, right? It's fun to mock the things that suck. It's just funny, and that is another way to kind of bring people joy. But I think at the same time, I really appreciate the people who create the thing that's more enjoyable, create the thing that does what you want it, what's missing and what they want it to do, and that's what I try to do. And so I don't know if it's going to be every week. Right now I probably don't have definitely have your dad. Honestly, I would, but I honestly don't know how yet. Like I figured out how to get just OliveTree on, and so I'll look into it. I'll see if I can figure out how to get multiple people on at one time. So that'll be the next challenge for me. I'll see if I can do that, because that would be an epic conversation too. Because we've told that story a few times about how Joe actually knows my dad from like 20 years ago, and that's a wild story. So maybe we'll try to figure that out. But yeah. So right now, like I'm thinking at best every other week, I'll probably try to have someone on. Maybe every third week. It just depends, because my schedule is kind of tough, and maybe it'll get easier. I mean, like I said, I was on 1 episode per week, and now I'm at 3. So it'll keep getting better, and we'll see how that goes. Anyway, let's talk about your trajectory. And oh, thank you, Joe. That's really nice. Yeah, no, I mean, it's the kind of thing that, like I said before, I was just kind of doing for a while. I wasn't even, I guess because I was doing it for me, it was just something that I felt less pressure, like in terms of people wanting me to deliver. And so it kind of just helped with that. But like I said in the beginning, I've got like maybe 30 more minutes here at best. So let's talk about some funny stuff, kind of funny stuff. Overall, the topic that I wanted to discuss, which I don't want to get too heavy with it because it's Friday, and this kind of topic has been talked about by people before, so it's not new. I'm not like going to break any ground here or anything. But I come from a family of pretty based people who, are very pro-America, because my great-grandpa came here as a Greek man from Turkey many decades ago, almost probably 100 years ago now, almost 100 years ago. And so we grew up believing, with understanding the importance of freedom and the Constitution and all that. And that stuff is, important. We saw the benefits of kind of our way of life compared to some other ways of life during COVID. If you just look at even Western countries like Australia and Canada, I mean, total shitholes as far as their ability to fight these things was a lot, I guess, harder, probably because of the structure of their government. I guess because we have state governments, and we have our actual freedoms a little more ingrained into our Constitution and in our way of life. We had more means to fight against some of the horrible things that were happening. But at the same time, the past 2 years also, to me, kind of demonstrated that some of my libertarian leanings that I tended towards over the past maybe decade or so were probably misguided in some ways. And there's other things that I've realized that I've been misguided on. Like there are a lot of things. I mean, I grew up in 3rd grade during 9/11, and I was in New York, so I was on the indoctrinated side of that too, because how the hell would I have investigated it as a 3rd grader? But with libertarianism, it's a little more complicated, because what people generally think of as libertarianism just means, like my parents, for example, or people in my family who lean that way, really just kind of, they believe in morals, right? Like they believe in, they have a Christian ethic. So really when they think of libertarianism, they're just thinking of the ability to operate freely within that. But that's not how libertarianism tends to be defined. People tend to, describe it in terms of the non-aggression principle, for example, where it's just, as long as you're not harming me or something, that, we're good. And I think that over the past 2 years, I've come to realize that it's almost how the same way I realized that atheism was kind of dumb. Just because it's first of all, it's a non-position. It's just a position that says I'm not taking a position on anything. I don't think anyone should do anything. And if you have kids, or if you are around kids, like, there needs to be limits on them. There should be. You have a position on whether you think they should do drugs, and whether you think that they should engage in certain behaviors. And so to think that a society shouldn't also encourage one way or the other, and the government should just pretend like none of this happens, is something that, I guess I didn't really think of when I was kind of tending in that direction, right? And I'm sure that if you were to ask a libertarian, do you think there should be no government? Most of them, understand that if there is no government, how do you enforce the non-aggression principle, right? And if your goal is to enforce the non-aggression principle, then how can you call it anarcho-capitalism or libertarianism or whatever you want to call it, right? There has to be some kind of way to enforce it. Otherwise, what's stopping someone from just not following it? And that's what we saw during COVID, is you had just a bunch of people who decided, they're going to team up with the WEF's main phrase that they used the whole time was public-private partnerships, right? So they just become friends with the government and make a team and basically operate like that. And you could say, well, that's not libertarianism, that's communism. Fine, but at the same time, there are things that these companies were doing that you could argue from a libertarian perspective was just their prerogative, right? Like, why can't, what's stopping a private company from lying? Nothing, And we can see that with Twitter today. So I'll pull up some examples of this. This is I've just wanted to look at. I mean, this is something I included in my book, and it's just hilarious. I just wanted to bring this up because I pulled this up originally just to laugh at it at first, but can you believe that people actually did this shit? I still to this day can't believe this actually happened. But let's get back to Twitter. All right. So Twitter, is going through it right now, right? And again, this is a private company. And so their logic through the past however many years is that we're a private company, we can come up with terms of service, and we can do whatever we want, right? With our terms of service. We can ban people if we want. We could do this, we could do that. And this is the direction. When they say public-private partnerships, what they're really saying is, one, monopoly, but two, they move towards this smart city type of model where your rights no longer come from the Constitution. Your rights are what you accept within each place you go, right? So if I go on Twitter, then I don't have the freedom of speech. If I go on, if I go to the smart city, the smart city can come up with the same type of thing, right? The same type of standards that anybody who's there has to agree to. And this is kind of the way that governments just skirt around and pretend like they're still being libertarian, right? But they are actually violating the very rights that are supposed to be guaranteed to people. Now, I accept that, there are venues where you should be where people should have the right to limit speech, right? If I own a small shop in my neighborhood, I shouldn't have to deal with people coming in there and protesting my shop. But the problem is that these big institutions are propped up by the government. They are still regulated by the government, and the government encourages them, as we saw with Facebook especially, and the Biden administration, to censor speech that the government doesn't like. So they violate it anyway. And again, you could argue, well, this isn't libertarianism in practice. No, but it is technically, and this is how they get away with what they do. Is they just say, well, we're just private. We're just the private sector doing what we want to do. And if there's no enforcement that this kind of company, that is propped up, sustained by the government, is for all intents and purposes a public utility. If there's no push to make this type of company have to follow the rules, the same standards of the federal government, this is what we have seen empower them to just do whatever they want. And I don't agree with that at all, right? I want the government to. It would be better if they had a set of standards, but ones that are actually based on something moral, like Christianity, right? It would be more ideal if they had defined standards than this censorship that just ends up being whatever the private decides, and you end up with people like this Vijaya Gad chick who's literally crying right now. This is the person who decided for decades what this public utility was able to kick people off for, take away their income. I mean, people make money on these types of platforms, and these people were able to wrong them, to take money from them, just based on nothing, just based on whatever they feel like at the time. And the thing is too about libertarianism, the separation of church and state. There's always an underlying foundation, right? These people have a religion just like everyone else. And right now, what I refer to them as in my book, and what people refer to them as, their religion is this technocrat idea, this utopian materialist technocrat idea that they can control the human race in a way that will save the world. And they fail at it all the time. Because they're not God, but they think they are. And if we are, if these are the people that run these institutions, I'd rather it be Christians. I used to think that there could be some kind of, just unbiased constitution following. But the problem is that, take the bear community, for example. In the bear community, we basically, the people who remain in it and operate in it agree on a general sense of morality, right? Agree on a cordiality between each other, agree on a way of living. Because we agree on those things, within our community, we can operate under a libertarian ethic within the bounds of that foundation, right? Like, basically, within the bounds of that foundation, you can, if you want to, raise goats, great, you can raise goats. If you want to make music, great, you can make music. So within a set community, within a community that agrees on a way of living, which in the U.S. it used to be constitution based, because like the founders of the Constitution said, there's this document doesn't work without a Christian moral ethic, right? It fails to function in the absence of a moral people. There's a reason they said that. It's because a moral people who agree on those terms, who agree on the general ethic, can exercise freedom within that ethic. But if you don't have the ethic, if you don't have the foundation, you end up with this anyone just making up whatever foundation they want, it never getting defined, and continuing to pretend that we live in like a free society. And this is libertarianism, right? This is what it actually is when it plays out. There's always going to be a mafia that takes over all the time. If you don't have to call it a government, but someone is going to take control, because why not? You can't stop them. If you want to stop them, you're going to have to aggress them, and you can't do that. And Dan Crenshaw is like a good example. He shows, exactly this. Retweet if you're going to start using Twitter more now that Elon Musk just took over. Why don't you, Dan Crenshaw, take control of Twitter? You're part of the government. How is it that they've gotten away with this for so long if you have this ethic that what they're doing is not good, right? If you believe that what they're doing is a violation of free speech, which is supposed to be guaranteed to people, what is taking so long? This has been going on for a decade. This guy is a libertarian. This guy, wants it to be that this private company can do whatever the hell it wants. And they get away with it, right? Because Twitter most likely is just, at this point, a government-run organization also, if it's not just a straight-up intelligence agency. But this is like kind of what these people think that they can do. You can choose Christianity, or you can choose this. Should Kanye West music be banned? Now, we pretended for a while it was Christianity that was going to lead to rappers' music being banned. And we pretend still like these people don't have a religion. This is a religion. It's the same thing. They advocate for censorship too. The difference is that theirs is crazy and it's not based on anything. It's based on lying. It's like Kanye West won't lie, so should we ban him? It's wild. But this is why I titled the stream The Visible Hand, because we can see the hand. The hand is Bill Gates' shriveled, decrepit little hand. Oh, it's not invisible anymore. COVID revealed it. The shriveled little hand of Bill Gates is the one that kind of puppets everything, and we see that now. But anyway, this is, like I said, I'm not breaking any crazy ground. I just wanted to stream today to keep the streak going, to kind of keep doing more streams. So I'm gonna end it a little bit early today. I have some stuff I gotta get out and do. But thanks for joining again. Thanks for joining Joe. Thanks for joining Pablo Escobar. I love it. Talk to you guys next week, and we'll talk more about some more fun stuff. Hopefully there'll be some more funny stuff in the news, and we'll chat again. Have a good one.